Hi guys, it's me, Chancellor HD, and welcome to the return of This Week in Formula 1, where we have some new big stories as we head into 2019. And also today, as I'll get on to in a moment, we are going to pay tribute to a legend of the sport. But again, what exactly are we going to be talking about today? Well, first off, we're going to be talking about a big setback for Honda. Then we'll talk about Renault, who have come out and claimed that they are making massive gains over this winter and that it's been probably development-wise their best winter ever. Also, I'm going to look at Toto Wolff's comments about Valtteri Bottas and the targets he has set for Valtteri Bottas for 2019. And then we will pay tribute to the 7-time world champion who just celebrated his 50th birthday, Michael Schumacher. We will do that towards the end of this stream. Also, guys, if my microphone sounds different, I have played around with it to try and improve the echo and the background noise. So if it is a bit quieter, the actual sound, you may have to turn me up on your end. But if it does sound good, please let me know in the comments or the live chat. Hopefully you guys on this Sunday are doing very well as always. But we'll now start moving on to the news, and first start off with Honda. And you know, the Red Bull Honda partnership, when they agreed it in June, we didn't think that it was maybe going to work out, but then we saw the progress Honda made at the end of 2018, and we thought, you know what, Honda could provide Red Bull what they need to win even more races and maybe contend for the World Championship. But already, and by the way, this is technically confirmed by Helmut Marko, issues already have arose for Honda. So we'll now get into it now if I can. I've got the article up. I'm going to try and read from it and read you guys the, I guess, breaking news from yesterday about the situation at Honda. Basically, what's happened is, you know, Honda, when they present their engine for 2019, they'll have their concept and then they have to try and fit it in to the concept of the team that they're supplying. And well, it doesn't seem as though it's going that well. So according to and reported by AutoBuild, there has been a disagreement between Honda engineers and consultancy AVL. AVL, guys, they are a powertrain consultancy firm and they also specialize in internal combustion engines. That's very important to remember, as we'll learn in a moment. And that has seen the development at the moment slow down, and actually it's at a worse point than it needs to be for Honda right now. Now, what's happened because of this issue and what the issue is really about is the internal combustion engine. Basically what's happened, Honda, when they've been testing this new power unit, they have been unable, according to AutoBuild, they have been unable to turn it up to full capacity due to strong vibrations in the ICE. Mario Ilian has been drafted in to try and solve the issues. We don't know if they have been solved, but Helmut Marko confirmed that this is true. This is not rubbish. This is not BS. This is actually true, because he came out and said for this issue, so he confirms that the issue is real. And then he says, we are taking appropriate measures. So it is real. This issue is absolutely real. Honda are having issues with that power unit and with that ICE. And, well, when it comes to vibrations with the power unit, I think, let me try and think, what exactly does it remind me of? Let me just think, what exactly does Honda already struggling in the early part of the year, now supplying a successful or former successful team. What does that remind me of? I'm just trying to think. Something in the last 5 years. I can't quite remember. Oh, that's it. The McLaren-Honda partnership. That's exactly what it reminds me of. And in my opinion, Red Bull already are guilty of what McLaren were guilty of in terms of trying to tell Honda how their power unit should fit in their car. Now, again, we don't know if it's a Honda issue and they're trying to fix the issue, or there is no issue with the Honda power unit, but they just want it to be in a certain way so they can, fit it into their car. But an interesting thing to note is AVL is an Austrian company. So let's be honest, it is basically, it's basically Red Bull and Honda interacting on this one. But yeah, this is not good. This is not good at all because, at this point of the season or the year, you need to be getting ready for, switching, the power unit on, get it running and have it be just, for the first run. You're not expecting it to be absolutely fantastic, but at least have a smooth first run. They've tried running it at full capacity, but it vibrates too much. That is very worrying for Honda and for Red Bull. And I just hope that they can find a fix to this. Maybe next week they'll find a fix to this, but they have to, because in 6 weeks' time, guys, they're going to be turning out of the Circuit de Catalunya pit lane. So they have, they don't have that much time to get it right. So hopefully they do. But let me just see what you guys think in the chat right now. So guys, what do you think about that story? Do you think this is an issue to worry about for Honda? Do you think they'll get this fixed, in good time? And do you think this could be a sign of things to come if these issues do continue? Let me just see in the chat right now what you guys think. And yeah, let me know what you think about Honda. So I'll try and have a look now. See what you guys think about this. So let me just take a look. Mario Master engine that gives you a massage while driving sounds lovely. Just looking at the chat right now. Tonka Toy Truck, hard to discuss without any real facts. Again, we don't know absolutely for sure, but the news publication that is reporting this is very credible. They're a very credible news source, and Helmut Marko, who has responded, to these reports, he confirmed the issue. He said for this issue, so he confirmed that issue exists. Whether it's been overplayed, maybe it has, but he confirmed that this issue it's real. It is a real issue. Again, it might not be that hard to fix, but they have issues right now, and hopefully they do get it fixed, because I do want to see them finally get it right. Francisco, I will be concerned if these issues continue to testing. Again, we have 6 weeks until testing. They should get it fixed by then, but it's just a setback. It is a big setback at this point of the year, because I'm gonna guess that Ferrari and Mercedes are probably already getting to the point where they're gonna switch the power unit on and turn up to full capacity. I'm guessing they've already done that at least once. Honda have not got to that point yet. So yeah, that's obviously not a good thing. JB, the return of the GP2 engine, question mark? Let's not jump the boat. Again, this could be a sign of things to come. but it also might not be. Let's just wait on that. Hopefully, when we get to pre-season, those issues are solved. Flaming Fury, Honda is going to screw over. We have seen it before. I mean, we saw where the Toro Rosso cars placed mostly and they're powered by Honda. And I know it's a different team, but if you saw on the straights, they just weren't fast enough. Or they weren't. Yeah, that's exactly what you're saying. Yeah, they're not fast enough yet in a straight line compared to Mercedes and Ferrari. But I don't think... We're not really expecting that, are we? Them to be that quick. As long as they're faster than the Renault... then at least they're, you know, progressing with Red Bull, who had the Renault power unit last season. Sorry, at least they're progressing as an engine supply, and at least Red Bull, I guess, power-wise, are improving in that area. Mario Master, not great, but not awful. Again, not awful, but it's not. You can't paint it as anything good. It's not a good way to start the year, and especially with this report coming out, it doesn't really. It doesn't really, you know, set things going forward in, you know, in a nice way. Naveen says yet another Renault Renaissance. We'll get into that in a moment. Knowing Gasly and Verstappen, this is from JB. If the engine is bad, then we will have a lot of whining. Yeah, having Max Verstappen in the car is not a great thing when you have a bad power unit, maybe more so to do with reliability, more than power. Yeah, that's not the greatest thing. Mario Master predictions for Red Bull in 2019. I actually made my predictions, I think about a month ago. It's one of the podcast episodes from December where I think it's called Early 2019 Predictions. I went with Max Verstappen second in the Drivers' Championship, but I made it clear at least a million times that the reason I've gone for that is I thought at the time Honda were going to make progress. Not, you know, massively insane progress, but progress. But right now, I am doubting it slightly, but still, we can't, you know, come out and say that it is, you know, that their season is ruined because we haven't actually seen them on track yet with the Honda in the back of the Red Bull. But Marco also says the engine is already better than the Renault. Based on 2018, yes, at the back end or the second half of 2018, the Honda was better than the Renault, but you can't say that for 2019 because we haven't seen the cars on track yet. We haven't actually seen the cars on track. So we can't say that yet. And as I'll get onto in a moment, Renault claim that they've had the best winter ever in terms of development. So we can't really say that right now, because every year when it comes to the power units, everything kind of resets. Especially, you know, between Ferrari and Mercedes. 2017, Mercedes had the best power unit, and then it went to Ferrari in 2018. No one had really expected that. Ewok from Endor. Unfortunately for Honda, they are neither fast or reliable. Yeah, I think that pretty much describes it. But I think now we will move on to the story about Renault, and Cyril Beatballs claims that Renault are having their best winter ever in terms of developing the car. He said this, I think, about 2 or 3 days ago, and we've heard this before from Renault, but I don't know why. Because of the new regulations, I believe this more than I do other times. You know, when Renault said, oh, Red Bull, when they were supplying them, Red Bull can win the championship, and then it turns out they can not get anywhere near that because the Renault power unit is just not good enough. I actually believe it more this time than I have any other time. And when it comes to Cyril Beatball's quotes, let's just see or hear what he has to say. So this is what Cyril had to say about Renault making gains so far in 2019 and the back end of 2018, probably in the last couple of weeks or so. The gains that we will be making on the engine are much bigger than we have ever done in a winter, and the gains that we are currently doing in the wind tunnel are much bigger than we have ever done. That is from Autosport. That's a certain quote and article, but I don't know why, I just believe it more this time. I don't know if I'm hoping to see them up there. I don't know if it's more hope than belief, but I don't know. I just think he's telling the truth more this time. I don't know what you guys think. I'll come to you guys in just a moment, but it just seems as though, if you look at, for example, last season, coming into 2018, people didn't think Renault were going to finish 4th in the Constructors. Certain people I talked to thought 5th, 6th, something like that. But then after pre-season testing, everyone thought they had the best car in the midfield, and they surprised people. And I think they're going to do something similar. I think most people think Renault are going to be 4th fastest, and they should be. But I think they will be closer to Red Bull than you think. I don't think they'll be faster than Red Bull, but I think they will be closer to Red Bull than you are expecting. So hopefully Renault are, once we get to testing, closer to Red Bull. But guys, what do you think about that? Do you think these claims are true? Do you think Renault are having the best winter ever? They're making massive gains on the engine for the first time in about 5 years or 6 years. And do you think they can, if Red Bull and Honda do have issues early on in 2019, do you think Renault can capitalise and be right there, you know, potentially 3rd fastest on the grid? Do you think this is possible, and do you think these claims are real? Let me know in the chat and also the comments right now, and I'll go through your comments to see what you guys think. So let me take a look at some of your comments. So Block Flight says Renault will be comfortably 4th, I think. Yeah, I think they'll be 4th. I think that's the most realistic place you can put them, is in P4. But again, I still think I think they'll be closer to Red Bull than people think, but they won't be close enough to actually beat Red Bull in the Constructors. Bristol Racing says, I still believe Ferrari and Mercedes, the comment's just gone off a minute, have the edge. All they have to do is make their engines more reliable so they can have higher revs for longer. Absolutely true. There is a clear gap with the power units. You have Honda and Renault, who are kind of at the same level, but Honda, based on the back end of 2018, are slightly better. And then there's a massive gap up to Ferrari and Mercedes, who are about, you know, around the same ballpark, except Ferrari are slightly better in a similar way to how Honda are slightly better were slightly better than Renault at the back end of 2018. Mario Master says Formula 1.25 for Renault. Yeah, pretty much. They're going to be most likely directly in between midfield and the top 3. If you guys remember Mercedes in 2011, that's how Renault, I think, will be for 2019. Mercedes in 2011 were basically, most of the time anyway, were a lot faster than the midfield, but they just were nowhere near the top 3 teams, who at the time were Red Bull, McLaren and Ferrari. So I think that's going to be the same for Renault for 2019. And then maybe for 2020, they can be around 3rd fastest, you know, sometimes. And then after that, maybe get up to 2nd fastest, or maybe fastest of all. We'll have to see. Long way to go yet in that Renault project. Crystal Racing says it will be very close between Renault and Honda. Yep, it will. Tonka Toy Truck, Force India and Haas will wipe the floor with Renault as long as Roman gets his act together. I don't think that'll be the case. I know I know you think, and I've seen your comments in the past, and you know it's your opinion. You're absolutely entitled to it, but I don't think Renault are going to be in the midfield next season, or this season rather. I don't think they are going to be in the midfield. I think Renault will pull away, but you know, I could be wrong, and you could be right, or it could be the other way around. We'll have to see. Of course, we don't know yet. What is going to happen? You guys saying Red Bull are still clearly ahead of Renault. Again, I'm not saying, when I say Renault will be closer than people think to Red Bull, that doesn't mean Renault are going to be close. I mean, what was it? The gap between Red Bull and Renault in 2018 was what, a second and a half? If you cut that in half, they're still what, 7 or 8 tenths of a second off, and that's still nowhere near for Renault. So just because I say they're going to be closer than people think doesn't mean they're going to be close, if you know what I mean. Right, let me look through some more comments from you guys. Nature, Honda may have the faster engine compared to Renault, but because of their reliability issues over the season, Renault will clinch 3rd place from Red Bull. That's interesting. So you think that the reliability stakes and the better reliability will be with Renault. That's interesting. Tonka Toy Truck, I think people forget Force India was in 4th before the financial cave-in. Yeah, that is true. In 2017 and 2016, they finished 4th back-to-back seasons. That is true. I think Force India will be strong, or Racing Point, or whatever they want to be called this week. They will be strong this season, but I don't think they'll be as strong as Renault, because Renault are a manufacturer and they have plenty more resources than Racing Point do. So I don't think Force India or Racing Point, or whatever the name is, can realistically compete with a manufacturer. I just don't see it. I just do not see it, I'm afraid. Flaming Fury, at the end of the day, we will just need to wait till everything plays out. True. Again, the reports about Honda and this report about Renault, we won't know that until we actually see the cars on track. But with certain teams, you can get a feeling that it's going to be a good season from the comments they make, you know, before they even drive the car for the first time sometimes. So it's important to, you know, to note these things and, you know, to read this out, because we might come back to this later on in the season. For example, if Honda are terrible this season and have problems with their ICE, then you can say, well, you know, we said this in the first week of January that they had issues in that area. Right, let me look at a couple more comments and then I will move on to our next story, which is to do with Valtteri Bottas. Palam, as an Asian person, I want Honda to do well. Yep, I'm sure you do. Ultraman, what is an ICE? That is an internal combustion engine. That is the issues that Honda currently have. Right, let me just look for a couple more comments. Will F1, right then, Honda, have you bottled it already? Let's wait for that, but it's definitely not a good start at all for Honda. But I think now we'll move on to our next story, which is to do with Valtteri Bottas. And Toto Wolff has come out and set Bottas targets for him for 2019 to try and keep his seat at Mercedes for 2020. And it's not really a surprise, but it's still interesting to look at these, you know, these certain comments. So let me just get rid of this, and then we'll get to the quote from Toto Wolff. So here you go. This is the targets for Valtteri Bottas set by Toto Wolff. He says Valtteri knows exactly where he needs to be next year. He needs to have all the bad luck gone. That is true. We'll get into that in a moment. And perform on a level with Lewis. I don't think he can do that, but we'll get onto that in a moment. This is what is needed for the 2020 year. He knows that very well, and he has that in him. Again, the source there is Autosport. With this, now, he's right about the bad luck. If he doesn't suffer as much bad luck as he did in 2018, he will have a better season, statistically at least, than he did in 2018. But when he says perform on a level with Lewis, I don't think Bottas can do that. I don't think he can do that. I mean, I'll come to you guys in a minute about this, but I don't see how Valtteri Bottas can compete on a level with Lewis Hamilton. I just don't think it's possible. I don't see it. I mean, you could argue there's some races where Sebastian Vettel, who is a better driver than Valtteri Bottas, you could argue that there are races where Vettel can't even compete on Lewis Hamilton's level sometimes. For example, Singapore. I just don't think realistically it's possible for him to do that, and I don't think he should be set that target. What Valtteri Bottas, in terms of targets for 2019, what he needs to do is he does need the bad luck to go away, which is something he can't control. But what he needs to do is be consistently in the podium places, like Kimi Räikkönen was in 2018. Be in that top 3 consistently. Have a run of races of 6 or 7 races where you finish in the top 3. That's enough. You have to remember he's not Mercedes' #1 driver. He is their version of Rubens Barrichello. It might sound harsh to say that, but it's true. He is their version of Rubens Barrichello, and Lewis Hamilton is their version of Michael Schumacher. And Barrichello did well enough to just finish continuously on the podium. He didn't have to go out and compete on Michael's level because he wasn't expected to. And I think here, I just don't think realistically that should be expected of Bottas. I don't think he can. Even if he has a good season, I don't think he can compete on Lewis Hamilton's level. Maybe a couple of races he could beat Lewis. Of course, he did do that in 2018. But I don't see how that's possible. I'm afraid I just don't see how that is possible. I don't see how Valtteri Bottas can consistently, over an entire season, even if he performs at his best, can compete with a 5-time world champion. I just don't see it at all. But guys, let me know what you think about this. Do you think that Valtteri Bottas can compete with Lewis Hamilton? And what are your targets for Bottas in 2019 to keep his seat in 2020? If you want him to keep his seat, of course. But if you do want him to keep his seat, what do you think he needs to do to keep his seat at Mercedes? Put in the chat right now in the comments, and I will get to your comments. Also, before I get on to these comments about Valtteri Bottas, just need to let you guys know, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. We're going to be doing This Week in F1 every single weekend, whether it's not an F1 race. So, for example, for the next 6 or 7 weeks or so. So don't forget to subscribe on the bottom right of the screen, or click on my channel name and go to my channel page and subscribe to the channel and hit the notifications bell. Also, if you want to use Super Chat, that's also available for you guys to use. And don't forget to like this video as well. But let me take a look at some of your comments about, if I can, Valtteri Bottas. Because I'm interested to see what you guys think about Bottas. Prussia says, I think he needs to finish P3 in the championship at least. He did do that in 2017. Yeah, if he did that, I think he would deserve to keep his seat, because I don't think realistically you can expect Bottas, one, to beat Lewis Hamilton, and depending on how quick the Ferrari car is, to probably beat Sebastian Vettel. I don't think realistically you can expect that of the Finn. Crystal Racing repeats the point that I just made. Bottas needs a Kimi 2018 season, but Leclerc and Max will probably beat him a lot. If their cars, if Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen cars, if their cars are good enough, then yeah. But we'll have to see. The Mercedes, you don't know, might be dominant, but it might not be that good at all. We don't know as of yet. Nature says Bottas will be beaten by Vettel, Hamilton, Leclerc, and Verstappen in the championship. In my 2019 predictions that I made about a month ago, I put Bottas in P5 in my Drivers' Championship list. And I think realistically, if the pace of the top three stays about the same, he will probably finish in 5th in the Drivers' Championship. JB says, I can't see Bottas staying on with Mercedes any longer after this season. Ocon will join Mercedes in 2020. Then Russell will join Mercedes in 2021/2022. Realistically, it looks as though Ocon is going to Mercedes. With Russell, we can't say that yet because he hasn't actually turned a wheel in an F1 race. But yeah, it's not looking good for Bottas. But if he does finish in the top 3 in the championship, I don't think I can really ask any more of him. Maybe if the Mercedes car is dominant, maybe you could argue he should be 2nd, and he probably should be. But if it's one of the top 2 cars, and he finishes 3rd in the Drivers' Championship, I think that's good enough. That really is good enough. Summer Cragland has come in late. Don't worry about that. You'll be able to watch it back once this goes up as a video later on, so don't worry about that. Will F1, I think Bottas will finish 5th in the championship, again ahead of Gasly. Yeah, I think I predicted that as well. I think Gasly, will finish in P6. But yeah, Bottas, right now I'd have to say Bottas is probably going to finish P5 in the Drivers' Championship. Summer Cragland says, honestly, I see more potential in Russell than Ocon. I see your point, and actually I do kind of agree. If Russell does perform once he gets into the Williams and starts, having some races, and if he does perform, I think Russell could prove to be better than Esteban Ocon, because I think Russell has had a more successful junior Formula career than Ocon has. And I think has looked better in junior Formulas than Esteban Ocon has. But what you do in karting and in F2, GP3, FIA Formula 3, it doesn't matter once you get to F1. That all goes away because F1 is so much bigger than those series. It's not like Ocon massively beat Checo. That's another thing. Ocon, if you ask me now, has Esteban Ocon done enough to get a Mercedes seat? I have to say no. He hasn't had a podium, and he has had the opportunity to get a podium, by the way, and he hasn't beaten Perez. So I don't see how you can give him a seat in Mercedes. If you do, then what about Sergio Perez? So, there you go. But right, I'll read out a couple more, and then we will go on, after I read out a couple more comments, we will go on to the part of this stream where I'm going to pay tribute and look back at Michael Schumacher's career. Will F1, do you think Bottas could be replaced mid-season? Also, I think Ocon is slightly overrated. I don't think Bottas will be replaced mid-season. I don't think Mercedes are that type of team. And with Ocon, I think he is slightly overrated, yes. He's definitely good enough to be an F1, That is not even a debate. He is good enough to be an F1, but he's not good enough yet to be in a top car. No way, in my opinion. Simon Cragland, how do you think Ocon will fare against Hamilton compared to Bottas? He may fare better, but I don't think he'll be any better or that much better really than Bottas. I don't think Ocon really stands a chance of beating Lewis Hamilton over a season. I don't see it. If Ocon gets into the Mercedes, it'll be similar to how some of you remember when Felipe Massa got into the Ferrari for 2006 alongside Michael Schumacher. In that season, there were a couple of races where Felipe beat Michael, but most of the time, Michael Schumacher was the team leader, and that's what it will be with Hamilton and Ocon. There will be races, for sure, where Ocon will beat Hamilton, but Hamilton, most of the time, will comfortably beat Esteban Ocon. Yeah, and that is true. Just seeing in the chat, that is true. Niki Lauda, unfortunately, is back in hospital, but it is because of a bout of flu. It's not because of complications of his the issues he was having some time ago. But hopefully, he does get well soon. Right, just gonna read probably one more. I'll read this one from Simon Cragland, then we'll move on to the Michael Schumacher tribute. So he says, I think it would be the same as Bottas, more or less, but I think overall Ocon would perform slightly better. Yeah, at best, Ocon would be slightly better, but I don't think he'd be that much better. He'd win. If you had Ocon in the 2018 car alongside Lewis Hamilton, I think Ocon probably would have won at least one race, maybe two, but Hamilton still would have won all, maybe not all of the races he won, but at the very least, most of them. But we will move on now from those news stories and get into the special part of this video, which is paying tribute to the 7 times world champion Michael Schumacher, who celebrated his 50th birthday earlier this week. And I thought, why not pay tribute to Michael and look back at his illustrious career. So, first off, we start in August 1991, when Michael Schumacher made his debut at Spa-Francorchamps in the Jordan, replacing Bertrand Gachot, who, by the way, was replaced because he was in jail at the time for assaulting, I think, a London taxi driver earlier that month. So Michael Schumacher stepped in and replaced him, and as they say, the rest is history. A year later, he won his first race for Benetton in a wet-dry race, made a brilliant decision to change on to dry tyres, and he went on and won that Grand Prix. A great drive from Michael, his first of 91 race victories. And this really was, this season, even though Michael was not amazing this season in 1992, this was the season where you started to see the talent that Michael truly possessed. Then we go on to his first World Championship winning year, 1994, and to November 1994 in that classic race at Adelaide where Michael Schumacher, let's be honest, deliberately took out Damon Hill to win his first Drivers' World Championship. And even though he did drive well that season, I don't think Michael did deserve the championship in 1994 because, one, the Benetton had illegal electronic systems such as traction control. They had an illegal fuel rig system which allowed the fuel to get into the car quicker and led to that pit fire with Jos Verstappen at Hockenheim in 1994. And this, the accident between Schumacher and Hill. Schumacher clearly turned in and tried to damage Damon Hill's car, and it worked, and Michael won his first World Championship. Not the best way to win your first title, but, well, with Michael, As long as he wins, I don't think he really cares how he gets it done. But then the next year, he did it in a lot better style in 1995, and in October of 1995 at the Pacific Grand Prix in Aida, he won his second World Championship, back-to-back championships with Benetton, and he was clearly, despite not being in the fastest car, the Benetton that season, you have to remember, was not the fastest car. The Williams was, but he still won that title and was the clear and deserving winner of that championship. But in the summer of 1995, he decided that no matter if he won the title or not, which he did with Benetton in 1995, he was going to join Ferrari for 1996. And in 1996, things didn't really go that well. He did win 3 races, but there was a lot of unreliability, and the Ferrari car was not ready yet to go for the World Championship. But in 1997, it was, and he had a great title battle with Jacques Villeneuve. It ebbed and flowed as the season went on, and eventually came to a head in Spain in October 1997 at the 1997 European Grand Prix at Jerez. Michael Schumacher was leading in the Ferrari. Jacques Villeneuve was second in the Williams Renault. Villeneuve went for the move down the inside, and what did Schumacher do? He did the same thing he did to Damon Hill. He tried to take out Villeneuve, and it backfired this time. He broke his car, and Villeneuve got to the end and won his first and only World Championship, whilst Michael was disqualified from the World Championship and thus went down after this as an absolute disgrace, and rightfully so. What he did here was disgraceful and cannot be defended at all. It was pointless for Michael. He didn't have to do this, but he did, because Michael, the one key thing you have to remember is he would try to win at any cost. He didn't care how he won. As long as he won, he didn't care. But then after an unsuccessful 1998, where he did not win the championship, he lost out at the final race at Suzuka to Mika Häkkinen. Then came 1999, where things were looking very good for Michael. He wasn't leading the World Championship at the midpoint of the season, but things were looking good because the Ferrari car was closer to the McLaren of Mika Häkkinen in terms of raw speed. But then he had this massive accident in July of 1999 at Silverstone, broke his legs, and it ended his hopes of a third driver's title in 1999. Such a shame. He had a brake failure, essentially. That's what sent him into the barriers. And it was such a shame, not only for him, but for Ferrari, who are still waiting for a world championship 20 years on. And it was such a shame, because I think Michael Schumacher would have won that title if he did not have this accident. Because if Eddie Irvine can get within a point or two of winning the title, you can guarantee Michael Schumacher would have won that championship. But eventually, he did win the title with Ferrari in what was one of the most emotional moments in the history of Formula One at the 2000 Japanese Grand Prix in October of 2000, where Michael Schumacher won the Grand Prix just ahead of Mika Häkkinen in an epic battle. And he won his third driver's title, and the first driver's title for Ferrari since Jody Scheckter in 1979, and it was fully deserved. Michael drove the wheels off that car. It wasn't the fastest car that season, but he won it because he made it happen, and he fully deserved it. And after this, Michael just relentlessly continued to dominate Formula One. For example, in August 2001, he won his fourth World Championship and equalled Alain Prost at the time by winning it at the Hungarian Grand Prix. This season, he didn't dominate the season, but he was clearly the best driver. He did have the best car, but he won it because he was the best driver, and he made it happen once again. And also, he became the most driver of all time in terms of race victories in 2001. But then came his most dominant season of all time, 2002, where he finished on the podium at every single race and won the championship in July of 2002. That's the earliest the World Championship has ever been won. He won it at the French Grand Prix, just ahead of Kimi Raikkonen. And even though you had the team order situation at Austria that season, he did deserve it. He did have the best car. Yes, he did have the best car, but he was, again, clearly the best driver, and at times he was unstoppable. But then we come to a season where things started to get hard for Michael Schumacher and Ferrari. We come to 2003, where Michael Schumacher did win his 6th driver's title, but it was a very hard fight for Michael to now become the most successful driver of all time in terms of World Championships. About 3 or 4 races before the final race at Suzuka, where he won the title, his car was not the fastest car on the grid. It was probably the 3rd or 4th fastest car on the grid, as the Bridgestone tyres at the time were struggling and the Michelin tyres were flying on the McLaren, the Renault and the Williams BMW. But Michael, he fought back. He won 2 of the final 3 races and took the title. I don't think Michael deserved that title, because I think Ferrari played some tricks to try and hurt Michelin in terms of the regulations. Maybe we'll get onto that in another video. But he did make it happen when it counted. In the 2 of the final 3 races, he won the Grand Prix in Monza and Indy, and he won the World Championship. He produced when it mattered. And then in 2004, he added another World Championship to his collection at Spa in August of 2004, 13 years after he debuted in Formula 1. And now he was far and away, without any doubt, statistically, the greatest driver of all time. Absolutely no doubt about it. And he dominated that season with, I believe, 13 race victories in 2004 alone. But after 2004, things became difficult. In 2005, the car was not good enough to win the championship. It was, at best, the 3rd fastest car behind the Renault and the McLaren. And in 2006, that was his last chance at winning a World Championship. And after this, which was his last victory in Formula 1, the 2006 Chinese Grand Prix in October of 2006, at this point, he was leading the World Championship. But then, the race after at Suzuka, whilst leading the Grand Prix, his engine failed and his World Championship hopes completely faded away. And about a month before, at the Italian Grand Prix, after winning that race for Ferrari, he announced he was retiring from Formula 1 at the end of 2006. But he would return with the Silver Arrows. But his years in 2010, 2011, 2012, for his standards, were just not good enough. And the Mercedes car was also not good enough for him to be properly successful. Thus, he retired again in November of 2012. This is his last race, 2012 Brazilian Grand Prix. That was his last Grand Prix of his career. And I think with Michael, you just have to admire the skill that this guy had. This guy, especially on a wet track like you can see on your screen, whilst he was racing, if you exclude Ayrton Senna, he was, in terms of skill, focus, his physique, almost everything. This guy, especially car control, this guy was clearly the best driver in the field. and he had so many great drives, especially in the wet. And for me, his greatest drive is in June of 1996, the 1996 Spanish Grand Prix, where after starting P4 on the grid and a track where Ferrari were not doing well out in the dry, in the wet, after having a bad start, he cruised his way through the field, got past on the Lacey, got past the leader at the time, Jacques Villeneuve, and cruised off into the distance and wiped the floor with the rest of the field and proved why he was at the time and is at least one of the greatest drivers of all time. But with Michael Schumacher, it's clear. He is, again, one of the greatest drivers of all time. 7 drivers' titles, 91 race victories, and 68 pole positions. This guy, at his best, I'd say was unbeatable. Yes, the field of drivers he competed against maybe was not as good as, say, Ayrton Senna's, but Michael was an insanely good driver. Insanely good driver. And even though in a couple of those seasons I just mentioned, even though he did have the fastest car, even if he didn't have the fastest car, he would still go out there and win plenty of races and the World Championship, for example, in 1995, 2000, 2003. He didn't need the fastest car to win the championship, and that is the quality that the absolute best drivers have. They don't necessarily need to have the best car to win the championship. For example, look at Lewis Hamilton in 2018. I don't think the Mercedes was better than the Ferrari over the course of the season, but he still won the title quite comfortably. That is the qualities of a supreme driver. And for Michael Schumacher, after his skiing accident in December of 2013, I think all of us at Chazza HDF1 are hoping that Michael can get well. And just a message, and I know it's been said a million times, but I think you guys will echo this. Keep fighting, Michael. We do one day want to see that big grin on your face again. But now I will come to the chat and see what you guys think about Michael Schumacher and his career. I want to hear as well, why do you rate him as one of the greatest drivers of all time? Why do you rate him as that? I want to hear what you guys think. Also, I want to hear what you guys, what was his best moments, his best races, his best performances. Make sure to put that in the chat and the comment section down below, and I will try in the next, 10 minutes or so, I'll try to read out as many as I can. So let me now try and go through as many as possible. So right, let me just try and go through now. There's plenty of comments about Michael Schumacher, and I'm not surprised, because with Michael, everyone had an opinion about the guy, whether you loved him or you hated him. Halam says Michael could have been easily a 10-time world champion. He could have. I don't think he deserved to be, but he could have. He could have won the title in 1997, 1998, 1999. There you go. I mean, he dominated the sport in terms of being the best driver on the grid. He dominated the sport from 1994 until 2006. He dominated the sport for 12 years. That is insane. That's absolutely insane. Crystal Racing says, I think Ferrari had the best car in 2003 and saved Michael. Bridgestone lodged a complaint about Michelin post-Hungary and got them to change their tyres. I don't think Ferrari had the best car. I think they did in the first half of the season, but in the second half of that season, I think the best car was the Williams car. Not massively, but I think the Williams car was slightly better. And I think the protest that they lodged against Michelin was absolute BS, because Michelin, they weren't doing anything wrong. They were sticking to something that, or a directive that had been in place for I think 2 years or 2.5 years. Let me just look through the chat to see any more comments. Ben McCarthy, I rate him so highly because he and his close colleagues built Ferrari up to such a dominant force. That's another thing. Without him, would Ferrari? Well, I did a what if video on it, so you can go and watch it on the channel. I did it about a month ago. If he didn't go to Ferrari, Ferrari would be nowhere near as successful as they actually were. They would not have been anywhere near as successful because he brought in Rory Byrne and Ross Brawn, who was so important to the Ferrari project. Russia, I grew up watching him at Ferrari, and no matter how dark a race looked at times, he would still come back and sometimes even win an unwinnable race. He was my hero, and he still is for me the GOAT. And I think what you're saying there about how he would still win races he really shouldn't win, that basically comes from a belief system he has that you should never give up. And that's true for anything in life. You should never give up. You should give everything you can until you literally cannot anymore. And that's what Michael did in the races. He would give absolutely everything, every lap, every corner, just everything, until the checkered flag. And that's why he was so hard to beat, was because he pushed that hard and because he was so strong in terms of his physique. He could do that every single race weekend. So that's why he was also so hard to beat. Simon Cragland, he had made Ferrari so famous. Yeah, without him, would Ferrari be as big of as a brand in Formula One? Maybe not. Well, probably not. Because with Michael Schumacher, that's the most dominant and best Ferrari have ever been in their history. Crystal Racing, Michael's 2003 mid-season form was the worst I've ever seen from the master. Montoya was on fire. Yeah, Montoya was on fire. But I think Michael, when it comes to his first retirement, I think the seeds of that started in 2003 because it took a lot out of Michael to win that championship. He had to give so much to win the title at the end of that season in a car that was not the best on the grid, in my opinion. And it took so much out of him. I think that was the beginning of him getting maybe too tired of Formula One, if you know what I mean. So I think that was the beginning of that. But yeah, his mid-season form that season wasn't great. I think he finished, 3rd in France, 4th at Silverstone, 7th at Hockenheim, 8th in Hungary. He was very poor around the summer, and it was a very hot summer that year, which is why the Ferrari was so slow, because of how hot the races were. Ben McCarthy, Michael was never the most naturally gifted, but he found pace out of nowhere and was the best in putting in a string of electrifying laps. Give him any strategy and he would excel. That's another thing. And I think this is why Ross Brawn loves Michael Schumacher, or loved as a driver Michael Schumacher so much as well, is because Ross could give him a strategy that most drivers would not make work. Michael would make almost every single one work. That is the true sign of a legendary top driver. Right, I'll read out a couple more comments and then I will come to the end of this stream. Yep, Spa 1995. That was another great race from him, where he started in 16th and he won the race ahead of Damon Hill. And when it started to rain, Damon Hill was on intermediate tyres, Michael Schumacher was on dry tyres, and he still kept Damon Hill behind. That just, I think, almost says it all about Michael Schumacher. Also, just want to mention Monaco 1997, where he was, I think, 54 seconds clear when he won that race at Spa. in 1997. He won that race by about half a minute. Just amazing. I don't think anyone can be that dominant in the wet. I think Ayrton Senna was probably slightly better in the wet, but at Monaco, such a hard track, even in the dry, but in the wet, to be 53 seconds clear of second place, that is mind-bogglingly amazing. Absolutely amazing. Right, I'll read out a couple more comments, then I will come to this. I'll come to the end of this stream. For me, I liked Damon better. The F1 ZH Kaiser says, for me, I like Damon better, but Michael was something else. The Kaiser 7 title was amazing. Damon was more likable because Michael did things that you couldn't really like him for, but in terms of who was better, no contest. Michael Schumacher was easily better than Damon Hill. Right, the final comment that I am going to read out is from Francisco. When I was a kid, I used to dislike him because of his antics on track, for example, in Hungary 2006. But as time goes by and I watched past races, I admire him a lot. 98 Hungary is my favourite race. Yep, that is another classic where I think he was put on a 3-stop strategy, a strategy that was not really supposed to work out, but he made it work and he won that Grand Prix when he wasn't really supposed to. But there you go. Hopefully Michael does eventually get better. But guys, that is it for this stream. Thank you guys for coming along to the return of This Week in F1. The last time we did this was about a month ago. Now, this will be back every single Sunday where there is not an F1 race weekend. So if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Either subscribe at the bottom right of the screen or click on my channel name and go to my channel page and subscribe to the channel. Like this video, comment down below what you thought of this video, and comment down below what do you think about the news about Honda having a big setback, the news about Renault making, quote, massive gains over the winter, and what are your targets and what do you think of Toto Wolff's targets for Valtteri Bottas for 2019, and what do you have to say about Michael Schumacher and his entire career and how great of a driver he was? Make sure to put that in the comment section down below. Also, don't forget to join my Discord server, link below in the description. That's the best way to get notifications for my videos. As well, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Chaz6110 and check out my website chazrhd.com for more content like this. Also, guys, I just want to let you guys know that from now on, because I'm still working on things in this new studio, hopefully the mic and everything sounds better. Yeah, hopefully it does sound better, but because I'm working on a lot of new things, I'm not really going to post any schedules anymore of videos. What I'm going to do is, at the end of every, say, recorded video, I will let you know what the next video coming is. So, for example, the next video, guys, is on Tuesday at 4 PM UK time, where I look at Daniel Ricciardo's move to Renault and why it might be a masterstroke. Make sure to check out that video, 4 PM UK time on Tuesday. But yeah, if you want to know what the next video after that is, then watch that video and go to the end of that video also to see what the next video is on the channel. But I will be back next week with This Week in F1 and also the podcast next Saturday, but in an earlier time of probably 1:30 or 2 PM UK time. So hopefully I will see you all then. But guys, thank you very much for coming along. And it's been me, ChazRHD. Goodbye.